All right. If that wasn't incredibly hokey, I
Where's
don't
my
know.
Glock? I need to have my Glock on me right now.
What movie is that from?
I don't know. I used this template thing that actually, yeah, very weird. But that's how it came out. Oh, yeah, there's more, but actually, again, Pat and Catherine, you're frozen.
Oh no!
I don't look frozen to me.
Yeah,
It's so
no.
weird. They're even in different order on the screen. They arrived in different order, and it's still them that's frozen.
Yeah, I'm
How
gonna try.
odd.
Let's move pictures around. This is called doing things live.
I
I wonder if
blame my 100-year-old webcam that I'm using.
yeah, but it shouldn't do it to both you and Patrick at the same time.
And it only did it once the actual live stream started. Are you
Yeah.
sure you're not? Are you sure you don't have a license where you can only actually live stream 3 people?
No,
Just
I have
You're
like
cheap.
full super duper pro license actually. I'm sure the audience is loving this. Going, oh, they're having a little. All right. Let's see. I'm gonna try to hide on stream and then come back in. So let's try Pat first, and then, ta-da! No, now he's gone again, like he was.
Hey, if you want to see video of me, just subscribe to my OnlyFans. Okay, link in the link tree.
All right. And Catherine, I'm gonna try this again with you. So let's see. And oh, now Pat's back, but then he froze, and this is so weird.
Did you notice how his there's a little X by his signal strength? Both of them went to little X's again.
See, I'm not seeing that on mine.
Yeah,
I see that on Catherine's, but not mine.
That's weird.
Yeah, I'm not running anything else on my desktop either. I actually went into my task manager and shut everything off.
If you guys weren't streaming porn, this wouldn't happen.
I'm here. I want to do one thing. If it kicks us, we will jump back on. So I apologize for the kind of horrible thing again. I promise I won't show you that opening clip again. So I am going to go ahead and try switching.
Uh-oh.
Now he's gone and everybody else.
All right, and no, that didn't do anything. Oh, no, wait. I see, hold on. Give it a second. I see you at full strength on the Wi-Fi this time. There's no X.
I see them both with X's.
Really? I don't on my end.
I can't tell you what to think about that.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to have to roll forward. And,
that's fine.
It's all good. I'll give you a static image or like a headshot or something, just if you want to use that next time.
Yeah, I'm actually going to probably check in with Melon and go, what the heck is going on?
I swap in my VTuber model instead and see if that works.
I don't know. Well, that would actually just take up power on your side. So I mean, it's
yeah.
Hold on, I'm just gonna do this and then bring you back. No. All right. All right. So let's go. So let's go to another hokey video intro bumper for talking about the Gygax challenge. Yes, tonight is the night of hokey openings. So hello, everybody, and thank you for watching Into the Grindhouse. Actually, this is probably more like Melon Tech Support Central as of the opening. But yeah, no, so we have a few things tonight to look at. So definitely we are going to talk about the Gygax 75 Challenge, which some of us are in week 1, some are in week 2, some have jumped to week 2, and some are just kind of here to just kind of, I don't know, chip in and be supportive. So we're going to get to that in a second. Just quickly, I am JC. I am the host of the show, as that hokey video basically said. And just quickly go around the room. And Pat, you're next to me, so you just want to give yourself a...
Yeah, my name is Pat O'Sullivan. I am a gamer and podcaster and filmmaker from Chicago. You can follow me on Twitter at Dr. X2112.
All right, awesome. Mike.
Hi, my name's Mike. I'm a gamer. Been gaming for probably about 40 years now, and just here to discuss the Gygax 75.
All right, awesome. Terry?
I'm Terry Mixon. I'm a full-time science fiction author, and I've been gaming for about that same 40 years as Mike, although I've had a huge gap in the middle of it. And I'm here just to chip in my 3 cents worth of what's going on with the Gygax challenge.
All right, and last but not least, Catherine.
Hey, I'm Catherine. I have been playing for games for like 20 years. I'm primarily a gamer, work at Eldritch Osiris Games, and do Epistone.
All right, awesome. So so we're going to start with the Gygax 75 challenge, which we already did a little video for. We were going to hop into looking at Dot Hack, the RPG, and then we're going to end with Mad God, which is honestly, Pat, that video. I just watched the trailer and I was in awe. So hopefully YouTube won't kick us off for playing the trailer, but I just definitely want to show that before you start speaking to it.
Cool.
But all right, so let's start with the Gygax challenge. So it was actually pretty easy, honestly. At least this, I know the next one is not going to be as easy, but this one was very much I did in like a half hour because it just everything kind of came to me. It's like, all right, well, I understand the pitch, and I already know what my inspirations are, which also made me kind of sad because I'm just going, wow, I'm very one-sided when it comes to designing worlds and RPG games. So there's not much variation compared to other stuff I've actually written. But I will start, and then I'll go around the board to see what other people have done. Then we could talk about week 2. And Catherine, you were already on week 2, correct?
Yeah, but I haven't really done too much yet.
Okay,
I got distracted.
we can talk a little bit about what your experience in week 2, and then go over what week 2 is going to entail. But so here's my pitch. It's a dark apocalyptic fantasy setting. Oh, there's a shock. Demi-humans, I used a phrase apparently no one likes anymore. Demi-humans are dying off as humans start to take hold. Demi-humans are very alien looking. So I wanted to go for not like, I don't know. I kind of thinking elves and dwarves, but honestly, I want to do kind of the RuneQuesty elves where they're actually plant creatures and look really alien, and dwarves being this like dying race that are also just kind of from the earth and not particularly human looking. War is over, so apparently there was a huge war, and people are rebuilding their cities. Major cities are dangerous, dark, and deadly. Gods are worshipped with little benefit, so kind of the gods have left sort of thing. Western European style lore, and cults are rising, looking to destroy previously held values and faith. So those are the pitch items I wrote. My inspiration is the Elric Saga by Michael Moorcock, Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien, Lankhmar series by Fritz Lieber, Warrior and the Sorceress, which is also the inspiration from another book I wrote by Roger Corman, Glorantha, Greg Stafford, Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, who I'm not 100% sure did that because it's a movie. The Game of Thrones series, George R.R. Martin, both the books and the TV series. The Book of Eli, which is an amazing film that I think a lot of people don't really know about. And lastly is the Gemini RPG, a Swedish RPG from the I think it's the early 90s, that I think every time I mention it, people go, what the hell is that? That's my pitch, and that's my inspiration for this week. So, Pat, you want to go next?
Yeah. So I'm doing the project that I'm working on. I'm not doing a full campaign. I just want to kind of use this the Gygax 75 to come up with the game that I want to run at Gamehole in October.
Okay.
So I had kind of talked about it last week. Gary Gygax classic D&D module, The Tomb of Horrors, reimagined by way of Home Alone and John Hughes movies, and a comical 5e homebrew. 6 pre-generated characters will brave the moors of Evanston to explore the tomb of Kevin McAllister and plunder his family's vast generational wealth. It's a self-contained module for 4 to 6 players to be run a game home. The length should be 4 to 6 hours tops. I'm going to obviously play test it first and, think about realistically how long I want to do this for. If I want to do a 6-hour session, or if this is something I think that I could really boil down to 4. I know Tomb of Horrors itself usually runs 6 to 8, and I definitely don't need this to be that intense. So we're looking at 4 to 6. For the pre-generated characters, we're looking at Home Alone 1 and 2, Uncle Buck, Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, all as inspiration. Using Uncle Buck as a barbarian, Long Duck Don as a monk, the polka guy that John Candy plays from Home Alone 1 as a bard, the Daughters of the Wet Bandits as thieves, Eagle Man from the classic Chicago Eagle Man insurance commercials as a wizard/sorcerer. Also include giant spiders, which was a thing in the first Home Alone movie, traps, and classic D&D stuff. Potentially use Ferris Bueller as the demi-witch or a cleric, since if we remember in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, his good vibes and devil-may-care attitude cured his friend Cameron and even taught him about the meaning of life in the process. So the two things of inspiration I'm clearly drawing from here are classic D&D modules and John Hughes movies. So whenever I run into a roadblock with one, I'll just turn around and draw from the other.
That is really freaking cool. Like, honestly, it's like the John Hughes. Actually, Home Alone was written by John Hughes too, right?
Yeah, no,
okay.
that's what put the idea in my head. Was that I was like, oh, John Hughes, and then because trying to come up with characters, I was like, well, there's not really a whole lot to do in Home Alone 1 and 2. There is the Pigeon Lady in Home Alone 2, and there is a class or a race in like a bird race in D&D. And I thought, well, that would be good because you could fly over some of the traps and shit. Like that would kind of make sense in that setting. But there really wasn't enough just to draw from those two. So I was like, well, let's open up a little bit and just do John Hughes. And I'm like, well, Uncle Buck is it Macaulay Culkin is in that, and John Candy. Okay, you could do Uncle Buck kind of like as a barbarian because he's kind of like this big dude that's real gluttonous and shit, and just the ideas kept coming. I don't know if I'll do Long Duck Don as a monk because I think that's kind of like you can't do that shit anymore.
No. But so
we'll see.
Well, Home Alone 2 or 3 had a chimpanzee in it. I can't remember.
I never saw I'm not gonna where he's fighting the Russians or whatever. Like, yeah,
yeah, him and Rambo team up. Do you have the and what I think there was a oh my god, now I can't think of the movie. The one with the $2 bike guy. Was that a John
Better
Hughes
Off
movie?
Dead? No, that was the guy that's another dude that did he did John Cusack movies.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah, that's no, that's all I got.
Okay, yeah, no, I was gonna say if I ever got to play, I would totally be down for playing Uncle Buck. That just sounds. I love John Candy, so anyway.
You just need to run a game where all the characters are John Cusack.
You know what? I'm glad that he brought up John Cusack because even though I know he did Say Anything or he did at least one John Hughes movie, completely off my radar for this, and he is very much a part of Chicago lore. So. Yeah, I'm going to have to work John Cusack in there somehow.
All right, awesome. Mike, so what have you done?
I also went with post-apocalyptic. Slight, I think, hopefully a slight difference from what you did, but here are my notes. So right. I've got a post-apocalyptic world where 70% of all races have been wiped out. The new world is where the remaining races are left to pick up the pieces. Traditional archetypes have been cast aside. Monsters and races such as humans and elves could potentially work together or work with other races that they had a hatred in a previous life. Technology is slowly advanced back to the Iron Age, and lots of old technology has been rediscovered. This would be a low magic world where magic items would be considered exceedingly rare and coveted, and powerful spells would be nearly unheard of. There are some sections of this world that have not advanced at all and remain in a savage or feral state. In addition to that, there's primeval creatures that seem to have risen again and seem to cause problems in areas where people are trying to rebuild civilization. What else can I tell you? Magic users are viewed as a combination of members of a long forgotten order, much like Jedis from the Star Wars saga. And finally, gunslingers are seen as samurai or kensai, showing weapons that most people have not ever seen and very few understand.
Oh, wow. So any inspirations on it, movies or books?
Probably lots. I didn't write them down. I just I wanted to go with something that was a little bit different than the traditional. So, I mean, a lot of what you named would probably be influenced by my decisions. But I unfortunately, I didn't write down a list.
All right. And just a quick question, and then I'll let Terry and Catherine give us feedback on those, just since Terry is the...
I'm the peanut gallery.
Yeah, or... conscientious observer, is that what maybe I'm thinking of?
I'm the control.
Okay. and then since Catherine has already done it, also feedback. But anyway, I'm just because it doesn't sound like this is the sort of setting that you would probably run with D&D or Pathfinder, because those are so overly powered in design. So have you thought about what you're going to play test this with?
Well, it was interesting because I designed this without a game system in mind. I just kind of sat down and thought, well, that would be cool. That'd be interesting. So there may not be gunslingers. I may decide on a rule system that just doesn't have gunslingers. So I don't know yet. Yeah, the short answer is I haven't come up with a game system yet. I wanted to create the world and then see if I could find a game system that would best accommodate it.
All right, no pressure whatsoever. I was just kind of curious as to what you were thinking of. All right, well, cool. So Terry, any thoughts, feedback, hate mail?
I absolutely love the idea of the humorous take on the Home Alone and all of the other going together. If I try to put humor into it, I think I would probably fail horribly. So it'll be interesting to see how the execution of a game master running it as a humor campaign actually plays out.
It'll depend on the players.
Have you done that before?
So at GaryCon this year, I did I had this old first edition module that was from like 1980, and it was called the Dragons of Wenzhen or something. And someone's an ex of mine, her older brother had left her like a book of gaming stuff, and she just gave it to me. And I was looking through it and one night, and I was like, you could put the Ninja Turtles in this. And I came up with all of this stuff that connected the Ninja Turtles with like, okay, so the boss is an Iron Golem. Well, that's Shredder. And we'll throw in a brain in the jar, and that'll be Krang. And instead of bandits, you have the Foot Clan, and there'll be a bugbear fighting ring in the basement where Vanilla Ice is like the MC. Like all this shit, it just kind of fit together. And when I ran it at GaryCon, I was lucky enough to have a really good group of players. Half of them were kids, and the other half were guys in their early 40s like me. And the humor, everyone was on the same page. It was the same vibe. So I can only be so funny. And if the other people at the table aren't going to take the ball and run with it, then it's not going to be a humorous camp. It won't be a humorous game. They'll just, if they're going to be sticks in the mud, fuck them. But like, hopefully we all click and we can make something funny together,
Absolutely. Catherine, any feedback from any of our discussions?
I had thoughts of yours and Mike's. I mean, Pat's too, but like stuff's already been said. But with your campaign and the kind of like apocalypse thing and like the demi-humans, it almost reminded me of a game that, or a specific race, I guess, that my friend and I had made up a while ago to make elves more unique in our setting. But like by the end, the elves were almost like nothing like traditional elves. they were almost like strange, predatory, like monsters in their own rights, with like Cheshire Cat style smiles and things like
Banged
that.
fairies.
Yeah. And with Mike, I was like toying around with like what kind of tabletop game I'd like run that through. And one vague and show me mercy with my idea tabletop game that came to mind was Shadowrun 4th edition, but like strip it down of like all the technology and all the hacking or whatever else, and just like play it as that kind of like dark fantasy kind of game, and have like strange magical foci be discovered, and maybe once in a while some like strange bit of advanced technology and that kind of thing, and focus more on like the magic side of things with like the adepts, the mystics, the mystics and the mystic adepts.
Interesting. That's not a bad idea at all. I mean, that's it's something I didn't consider, but yeah, that's interesting. I'd have to think that over, but I like the idea.
Yeah,
If
and
you
I
could roll
suggested.
on Wick into this, it would be even better.
Oh yeah, I suggested 4th edition because I've never played 5th edition. I know 6th edition is a dumpster fire. So.
Oh yeah, Mike and I could do a whole show on our experience with 6th edition. It was pretty bad. But yeah, so as far as the exotic elves go, so when I designed Tales from the Fallen Empire, I initially had elves in it because I'm elf crazy. Like honestly, it's one of my favorite races. I'd put elves in everything if I could. So when I first did a draft and I was talking with people, they said, well, that's not genre emulation, because if you look at Moorcock or Robert E. Howard's stories or Fritz Leiber, there's no elves at all. It's all human centric. So it's like, well, shoot, okay, I get it. So what I ended up doing is creating the Sidhe, Sidhe, and what they are basically, they're almost like Ents. They're living trees, and not even in the tree sense of like, oh, they look human. They actually look like trees, but there is she with the big S and she with the little s. So big with the she s is that's so awesome, Terry. Your cat's eye just popped up on the screen. So the big S she are the giant trees that have been around for centuries, but the she with the little s are actually more human-like, like dryads that basically spring from the elder she. So I kind of had to create a whole new mythology. I was like, darn it, I'm going to pigeonhole elves in some way, shape, or form, even if it kills me. And I basically did it that way. But yeah, so I kind of want to use fantasy races in the next game. I don't want to go full Tolkien because, and Mike, don't take offense, but halflings just lately have just been kind of like, they're halflings.
I'm sure I don't know what he's talking about.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're in that game. Yeah, we're doing a Pathfinder game where Mike and our friend Matt is they're both playing halfling brothers, and it's just they're very cool characters. But like in the design of a post-apocalyptic, I would see something like halflings dying out pretty quickly, just because Shire folk I don't think would be able to survive. Well, that's not fair to say, but
they've got like the Eberron halflings, which are like dinosaur riding crazy people, and then you have Dark Sun, where they're like cannibals.
Yeah.
Turn them into snipers. True. No one ever sees the halfling until they're dead.
All right. So, Catherine, so tell us a little bit about what you've done in week 2, and then I will go ahead and give a breakdown of week 2. So Mike and Pat can prepare for what we should be looking at.
So for my setting, as I said last week, I was working on an MMO-styled setting inspired by the .hack series. And so I had the idea of making the first map I had be like one of the early or very first like fields you go to. And so I had like this like vivid idea of a town being that right center in the map, and that's where the players spawn in. And I wanted a the dungeon to be kind of in a corner somewhere. And after drawing it out, I put it in like the top corner, like far right upper.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like you need to make a more like what was it, like an environment kind of thing, like a detailed bit of environment or something. And so I initially was going to put that around the dungeon, but I decided to put that around one of the smaller towns and kind of like buried it in like trees and foliage, and it's kind of like hard to get to for players, but maybe if they do get there might be like better items than in the starting town. And then I had a little like farm for maybe a quest that they could go to, and drew roads to each settlement, not to the dungeon though. And then started adding more things to the map to kind of like modify the roads and give them more difficulty, so it couldn't be just like a straight line. They had to like get around something. I'm using my hands talking about this a lot. My camera's dead.
Yeah, I'm going to actually try to fix that when we go into the RPG discussion, because I have a hardwired to my Echo device to plug that in. But
yeah.
But anyway, back to what you're saying. So, did you do it on hex paper, like it?
I used a hex kit because I had got that from a bundle years ago, and I was like, "Oh, this is a good time to use this."
Absolutely. I love when you just basically buy something and go, I'll never use this. And then suddenly, like 2 years later or 3 years later, like, oh my God, wait, I have that thing.
I have this.
On. Yeah. So, no, that's great. So maybe next session, if you want to share what that looked like, I'd love to see kind of what you're doing. And then we can kind of like those who do maps can definitely share our maps and kind of see where we're at with that.
Oh yeah. But, as a heads up, I have never done a map before. I do a lot more theater of the mind style DMing, and like maybe make combat maps, but that's about it. So making like a full field map was very new to me.
All right. Well, it's it's pretty cool, especially like when you're doing kind of like your first series of maps. I remember when I was like 13 and trying to figure out, because I looked at like a module. I think it was probably Keep on the Borderlands or Isle of Dread, and looked at it and went, wow, okay, I'm going to make my own map. And it definitely probably wasn't to my modern specs, but no, mapping is pretty fun.
I had a lot of fun with it.
So let's talk about week 2 in general. I just want to make a note that college is corrupting my mind, because I looked at this paraphrase from Gary Gygax and suddenly went, wow, this is not an APA 7. But anyway, that's just, it's kind of, I'm sad. Anyway, so the paraphrase is that Gygax suggests sitting down with a large piece of hex-ruled paper and drawing a large-scale map. A map with a scale of 1 hex equals 1 mile will be about right for the player operations, such as exploring, camping, adventuring, and eventually building their strongholds. Even such a small things as a witch's hut and side entrances to a dungeon can be shown on the map. The central features of the map must be the major town and the dungeon entrance. And that is Gary Gygax from his magazine article. So in week 2, we're to get a sheet of hex paper and draw the following items on it. And it says, if we don't feel comfortable drawing it, there are hex maps available that you can get online, electronic ones or anything. Name it anything worthy of a name. So I plan to call one of my settlements Otisburg, just because it has to be named Otisburg, and I don't know how many people actually get that reference, but I find it quite amusing. Anyway, so you basically do one large settlement, and you can do however big that you want it to be. 2 other settlements, and they could be camps, smaller towns, a keep, home base of a fantasy race. It could be in a forest or a little hill area. 1 major terrain feature covering at least 3 hexes. 1 mysterious site for exploration, and 1 dungeon entrance at least. And also then it says key or map. So put a key on it so you kind of understand, like, this is a symbol for hills. This is a symbol for a door or whatever it is. Because otherwise, you look at the map and go, what is that? But I'm kind of curious as to 1 mysterious site and 1 dungeon entrance. So do they just want us to draw the gate of a dungeon, like where you would go in? Or is the mysterious site the dungeon? Can you combine those 2 bullet points? So I think that's kind of going to be up to interpretation. But that is what is set for next session.
I considered myself as having done week 2 just because I'm obviously not doing anything besides the 1 dungeon. So I started to kind of, and I'm not a map maker either. I've done stuff with miniatures, like you're going into the cave. This is the cave, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've never this is going to be the most intricate level designing that I've done, and that'll be done on paper. The 2 things that I did, so I have a general idea. It's going to be like 4 floors. There's going to be a basement, 2 floors, and then the attic. There'll be 3 entrances, kind of like the Tomb of Horrors. 2 entrances you can get into, and then 1 real one. So I kind of started putting that together. But the 2 things that I did like about week 2 that I wanted to talk about real quick was the extra credit assignments at the end, because those I could do. And I liked the creating the random encounter table, which is something that I try to do for a lot of my games anyway, because I think it's neat to have that. And it'll tie into when we do the Mad God thing later. But it was great to just like brainstorm a bunch of little like 3-minute ideas. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this isn't going to be a whole room or anything, but what if this happened? Or what if they came across another group of adventurers, and what characters would they be? You know what I mean? Or stuff like that. And the other thing that it had that I really liked, which is going to be a whole other mechanic that I'm going to put in this game, is pimp your map. And it says to stain the map with coffee or burn the edges a little to give it some color. And I thought, what if, since you're supposed to be in the McAllister household and there's all these freaking kids, anybody that has kids, if your kids have ever been in like the Scouts or even for school, they always have to make these fire escape maps for like their house, right? So what if I made 1 for each floor and laminated them and had my kids do it, so they look like they were drawn like by shitty little 11-year-olds. And then that way, if they find them in the game, I could give them one as a prop. And it's not super detailed because they wouldn't, but it's like a fire escape map. So, okay, we have a map to this floor, right? We have a map to this floor. And then to throw in a Legends of Zelda component, like maybe you could find a compass, and then I'll just draw N for north. And there you go. All right, now you got the compass. You know which way is north. But, yeah, so I couldn't do this week proper because I'm not doing a whole terrain campaign thing.
Gotcha.
But I did try to encompass as much of that as I could into what I'm doing.
All right, cool. So maybe we can share a little bit more about it next week, or maybe you could just prototype one and just kind of give us an idea, and we can share it on camera. And I swear I will drive out to where Melon is and knock someone in the head because this is annoying. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna try to hardwire this in a minute, so I will disappear but I'll let Catherine start in on talking about the .hack RPG. So let's actually then just head into our RPG segment.
All right.
So here
What
is
could possibly go wrong?
Here is cheesy bumper number 3.
That wasn't too bad.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as like the action movie opening, but But speaking of
I actually
action
thought
movie,
the action movie was pretty good.
the action. Speaking of action movies and openings, I did actually go out and buy a hard copy of Zaibatsu, the game I talked about last week. It is a hefty book.
I bought a PDF of it. I haven't looked at it yet, though. I've been distracted by other things.
Yeah, it's honestly, I probably don't even know when I'll get around to it, but I was so impressed with the mechanics of it, with just the whole theme behind it, that I'm like, you know what, this is worthy to basically further break my my overstressed bookshelves as it is. So I'll find somewhere to slip it in there, because that's pretty much my game buying habits for the past like 3 years. So I have no time whatsoever. So it's like, oh man, this is a cool RPG. I can't live with it without it. And I'll buy it and I'll give it a big hug and I'll look at it and then I'll go on the shelf and then maybe a year later go, oh yeah, I own that book. So that is my experience with most of my RPG purchases. So
Looking
anyway,
at before you get into that, looking at the cover of that, I saw the image and I sent you a copy of it.
Yeah.
I saw someone a couple of years back. I saw a book where someone used that stock image on the cover of their book, and I was like looking at the RPG, going, "Gosh, that looks so familiar."
Yeah, that's kind of the problem when you use stock art for like, especially for a book, because you look at it and but I guess using stock art is more acceptable these days than using AI art. So
it is by wide margins.
Yeah, hopefully that'll change, but again, opinions. All right, I'm going to hide myself on screen. But what I would like to do is let's see here. Is there let's see if there's actually a cover. Is there a cover image for .hack?
There is not.
Okay.
It was just in a magazine.
All right. So why don't you go ahead and start talking? Tell us about the magazine that you found it in, a little bit of what you know. And I will go ahead, though, and share screen. So let me do two things. So I'm going to hide myself.
Oh, wow. When you hid yourself, we can now see Catherine.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see both of them.
Obviously, James was the problem all along.
Finally.
Well, there we go. Yeah, as for .hack, it's called .hack Infinite Generation, and you can find it online. It was originally in a Japanese exclusive .hack magazine back in 2003. And then another magazine that was like a sequel to it a little bit later that expanded on the rules a little bit. But the idea of it is basically a very short, very simple game where you only need like 2d6 and a minimum of 3 players. One of them can be the game master or the system administrator, but you don't actually need one. And the reason for that is because of how automated and randomized everything is. Instead of a GM carefully crafting out a dungeon, instead, like, all of it is just randomly rolled across like various tables and things like that. And you get to choose your name, obviously, and then a class and your role. And your class kind of determines like what sort of abilities or skills, as they're called, what kind of things that you can use there. And then your role gives you one additional skill that you can also use. And but your role isn't like healer or like tank. It's more like your background, kind of, or like your interests. Like one is hacker, one is it's like hacker, PKer, which is like player killer. They have grunty user, as you're someone who just like trains up a grunty, which in that is like kind of cross between a dog and a pig. And then you have like the rare hunter. You're someone who hunts down like rare items. And the charts and everything else is ruled with 2d6, but in combat, you only use 1d6. And the way turns are done is it's you go, and then the monsters go. And by you, I mean like everyone. Like all players go at once. Everybody rolls their dice at once, and you can kind of figure out what you need to do from everyone's roll. If someone rolls a 1, everyone's basic attack misses. And the way a basic attack works is instead of using a skill, you can use a basic attack. And the basic attack does damage equal to the number rolled times 10. And so if you roll a 3, for example, you would do 30 damage. Or each class, you'll see in a minute, has like 4 skills that are like tied to their class.
Is this what we're looking at? The
no, next one. Next one.
Rules. All right.
There we go. Yeah, you'll see that each one has like 4 skills like mapped to it, and each skill is mapped to a die. And that is the number you need to roll to be able to use that skill, and you also need to pay 10 SP. So you see here the Heavy Axeman has 30 SP. So they can use 3 skills before they need some sort of potion or assistance to regain that SP. And if they roll like a 5, for example, they use a Rue Break, which I'm going to actually pull up on my own screen so I can read it. Deals 30 damage to all monsters. If that monster is fire, deal 100 damage instead. So each monster has like an element corresponding to it. And if the elements match up, you get to do more damage. And that's kind of a thing they took from like the video games where, for example, water did more damage to fire, but fire also did more damage to water. Earth does more damage to wood. Wood does more damage to earth. Lightning or thunder, I think. Yeah, thunder does more damage to dark, and dark does more damage to thunder. And it's a very, very simple, very, very basic system. And while it's not great for long-winded campaigns, it does work really well as kind of that like in between. Like if somebody can't make it, this is something you can whip up in 5 seconds flat and be ready to go.
Interesting. So the learning curve isn't that hard to jump into it.
No, definitely not.
All right. Now HP, is that like hit points or?
Yep.
Okay.
So monsters do like a certain amount of damage, and when you die, you turn into what's called a ghost. You're not permanently dead. There's items that can like bring you back, and if your party wipes, you go back to what's called the root town, which means you're vacated from the dungeon. You're no longer in it. You're in the root town, and you have to kind of like go through the dungeon, like from the start.
Interesting. And is damage in 10 hit point blocks? Because I just noticed there's 10 squares.
It's kind of more like always going to be a multiplier of 10. So for example, a monster might do 20 damage or 30 damage, but they'll never do like 35 or 32.
All right. Okay. Interesting. Mechanic. I mean, I don't know. My game designer brain is kind of rattling around going, well, you could have just called these wounds and then you could have just take wounds. But anyway, that's it.
I think part of it was that they wanted to be like, so, like, the dot hack universe is so thick with, like, lore and mechanics, despite most of it not being in a video game. And I think they just wanted to have, the reason why they called it HP was because that's what it's called in the media. Reason why they wanted to call it SP is because that's what it's called in the media.
But I mean, honestly, not that I've played it or know much about the game itself or the universe per se, but I mean, for a to me, video game RPGs need to be designed very simply because you just having extensive mechanics for a video game RPG just kind of seems overkill. Like, so I think one of the goals, at least in my opinion, and people could just tell me I'm crazy, but one of the goals I would think that if you're doing a video game / RPG crossover, you're going to want to build something that the mechanics actually feel like you're in the video game. So everything kind of melds together. So you're not going outside of. So I'll give you some bad examples off the bat. I don't know if actually I can give you a good. This actually might be a good example, even though I know nothing about it. Is the World of Warcraft RPG that was put
Oh
out?
yeah.
That, I mean, sure, I bought the books because of the lore, because I love Warcraft lore. But honestly, as a game, like if I was fourth edition is more like playing Warcraft than the Warcraft RPG.
Yeah.
And it's just, I hate when people buy a license and then try to pigeonhole other mechanics into it, because then at
Mm.
that point, if you're a true fan, you'll probably buy it and never play it, or you'll just go, oh, I don't really do D&D 3.5, so I'm not gonna waste my time. The second RPG, which actually I gave the feedback to the designer directly. I'm actually friends with the father of the game designer, Cody Pons. Well, Cody Pondsmith was the one who wrote the Witcher RPG.
Oh yeah.
And his father Mike and I have been friends for many a year. Actually, I remember Cody when he was a little baby in a carriage, so that's how long I've known Cody. But anyway, so he did a demo of the Witcher RPG before it was published, and my comments to him were, "How does this feel like The Witcher?" I mean, it's basically the cyberpunk RPG with fantasy elements. It really did not give me that feeling of like, oh my god, this feels just like I'm in a Witcher game. But I bought it with, one, to support my friend, and two, to the lore is really interesting, and I could always put that to anything else. But I'm just curious. And the other one I could think of is when they did Diablo for AD&D Second Edition. They did a box set and a couple of books, but again, it's AD&D Second Edition, and it does not give me the feeling of running around smashing crates with coins jumping out of them. So that's so that was kind of a miss there. But I'm just curious, Pat, Mike, Terry, even Catherine, are there any other RPG video game crossovers that you thought were bad or good?
Is Dot Hack, was that originally a video game or a manga or what?
It was a most known as being an anime and a video game, but it
Okay.
was like from the start designed to be like a cross media franchise.
Okay.
Even like a lot of the books, I have one of them here actually, was like it details about how the idea kind of came in and like what they were like had in mind with it, and it basically started from the get-go. Like, we're gonna make a video game, we're gonna make an anime, we're gonna make a lot of books.
I remember when that first came out, it was maybe the late 90s, and I watched it and was like, okay, and didn't think much of it. And now over the years, it's gotten increasingly more popular, and I see it all over the place. And I always think to myself, man, I wish I would have stuck with that, because now it's everywhere. Back to JC's question, I like kickstarted that Fallout RPG, and man, did I want to love that thing, and I got it, and I have no idea how to play it. It's like so confusing. It's like the stat system's kind of like Shadowrun or Vampire, where there's like a ton. It's not just like your 5 core stats or whatever. It's like fucking everything, and I like the world, but like between that and then like the perks, which are like feats, there's a lot there, and it's almost too much. And I have a hard time trying to think that I would sit down and convince my friends to play this and explain it and everything. It's too daunting.
Yeah, it's Modifius's 2D12 system, which actually, believe it or not, once you actually learn it, because that's also the same system for Star Trek, the RPG, Star Trek Adventures. And I struggled with it until I finally realized what it was. And it's basically Fate turned into a 2D20 system. So it's kind of interesting, but I know with that particular game, a lot of the complaints were that when they did the power up of the boosts, it kind of gets really confusing. It doesn't, so it wasn't a very good use of the system per se.
There was one game that I and my friends looked at like years ago when we were teenagers, and like once in a while we glance at now as adults. Was Pokemon Tabletop United? Never was an official system, but it was like a fan-made system, and it was basically point-by-point translation of the games as a tabletop game, and that sounds great on paper until you realize how much bookkeeping that is. As you basically have to stat out every single Pokemon you catch or don't, and then just shove them into your PC, but then what's the point of having them?
No, understood. But you bring up a good point, though, is things like the app. So Pokemon Go, I think, is a very cool experience for playing a game. And granted, it's not an RPG, but it's an amazingly designed game. The UX for it, the user interface, is really well done.
Oh yeah.
And I'll even have to say that, which it is, well, it's a JRPG, the Pokemon stuff like on Game Boy and stuff.
Yeah.
Those are kind of fun. I think they're well done as well. But when you start getting into the tabletop experience, I feel with video game convert, because there's also a Dark Souls RPG now.
But I haven't looked at that yet.
It's based on 5th edition. So again.
Yeah, that's why I haven't looked at it.
Yeah, so it gets frustrating. But I like things like this where actually the game designer said, well, you know what? We really need to kind of make it feel like you're playing a video game. So we need to have very simplified rules. We need to have something that they can pick up, very quickly and have fun with it. Be more into the game than think about the game mechanics, because I find that's where most of the bigger named RPG conversions fail, is that they basically put this whole game like they put a system on it, or put the game on a chassis that it doesn't belong on. So
yeah. It was very cool seeing that they made their own system for it, and it's like loaded with little references and things to the series. Like there is so much love and heart in this thing.
Yeah, I'm actually if I can, so at some point off camera or whatever, I'll get the magazine this was in, because honestly, I'm super curious about the whole like D6 power system, because I would love to look at how that was done, and cough, cough, steal it, cough, cough, for something else I might design down the road. So
it's currently online for free. It's fan translated, and I can share the link into the chat. I think I shared it before, but I don't know.
I think if you share it in the chat, I can share it with the whole, 2 people watching. But Do
you want to share it in the private chat or the Twitch or Twitter?
Put it in the stream chat, because then that way I can share it on the screen. Now, honestly, as much as I say, there's a few people watching, actually, we tend to get whatchamacallit, people who watch it after the fact. So that's cool. Oh, all right. Well, I'm going to just open this up here and keep it. For some reason, actually here I can do this. So let me do a copy and paste, and then we can jump into our movie. It's so weird. So now we learned when I'm off screen, everything works fine. So I don't know.
They stopped moving again. They're frozen. It only lasted just a few seconds.
Well, yeah, as soon as I came back on camera. So what I'm thinking of doing is basically saying, all right, I'm going to go off camera or go hide. And when I'm hidden, you guys put on the best face that you want shown as your this week's emoji, and and then we can go from there. So let's see if I can actually pull this off. Oh, maybe I can't. Hold on.
There we go.
Yep, and then I can show it on stream. So that is the website. Not that it's very easy to copy and paste from your YouTube screen, but
if you would like, in like private, I can also send you the original untranslated images from the magazine that I have.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't
been able to translate them myself, but I mean, they are at least mostly translated.
Yeah, I am someone who is a game design fanatic. So, like, honestly, when I first saw this picture when you posted it on Twitter, it wasn't like, oh my god, look at the art, or interesting, look at there's hit points. My eyes went to, what is this dice system? I must know what it is.
It's a
So,
very cool dice system. I do really like it.
all right.
I don't know how I feel about when you roll a 1, every 1 misses, but...
All right, so I'm going to end the screen share here. I am actually going to start my camera back up, but I am now going to hide on stream. So I'm going to count down to 5. Give me your best stream face, and we'll go from there. So, all right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there we go. Perfect. Yay! Smiling faces all around. All right, so let's go to the cheesy video collector here and see what we have for our movie thing. Or do I have a movie one? I thought I had. Oh, show more. There we are. So here is our movie segment. So here we go. Ta-da!
That was underwhelming.
Compared to all the other things.
Yeah. So, Pat, I'm going to turn this over to you. Do you want me to show the trailer first?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So everyone, then that way you can talk to it. So, and here is the trailer. All right. So please enlighten us as to what we just watched, because that was incredibly cool and incredibly creepy all at the same time.
Yeah, it looked like a Tool music video. Mad God, released in the United States June of last year, is a one-of-a-kind stop-motion sci-fi fantasy written and directed by special effects wizard Phil Tippett. Tippett has worked for ILM. He won the Ray Harryhausen Award. He's worked on everything from the original Star Wars trilogy to Dragonheart to Starship Troopers to the fucking Twilight movies. And this Mad God is something that he wrote and directed and created all on his own. Like the trailer says, it took him 30 years to make, and it is simply incredible to watch. It's like watching an issue of Heavy Metal magazine come to life. The film chronicles the adventures of a main character known only as the Assassin, as it descends into a hellish world filled with bizarre scenarios and imaginative creatures. Every 5 minutes is something new, unique, and fucking gnarly. I would recommend this film to any game master because it is overflowing with imagination, number one. But number two, it's a testament to the fact that not all ideas are worthy of a 90-minute story or a year-long campaign. Sometimes a really good idea is just enough for one really good dungeon or one really good room of a dungeon. Don't always try and stretch a concept beyond its execution. Mad God is a prime example of a dozen or so 3 to 5 minute ideas being just as impressive as one big 90-minute one. And Alex Cox is the only human actor in it. He's the writer-director of Repo Man and Straight to Hell, which are two of my most favoriteest movies of all times. So Mad God is kind of like I said in my spiel there. it's basically an anthology, like that little guy that you saw with the World War I gas mask and the trench coat. He's just wandering down, and like he'll walk into a room, and there'll be some crazy stop motion shit going on, and you'll see that kind of little scenario play out, and then he'll wander into the next one, and then something will happen, and then the floor will collapse, and he'll find himself in a new environment, and it just keeps kind of doing that for its whole running time, which is how he was able, like when they say, oh, it took him 30 years to make, because it's very clearly pieced together. But going back to what I said earlier about the random encounters table for putting together a campaign setting, this is basically something that's entirely made up of a random encounters table, right? There's not really a clear through line. It's just kind of like, okay, roll a d20, what'd you get, a 17? This happens next. And then this happens next. And it's a bunch of really good ideas, but they only really sustain themselves for a few minutes, and then we move on to the next one. So it's, like I said, 90-minute movie. It's a quick watch, which the older I get, the more I appreciate the lower running times. And definitely recommend it.
All right, awesome. I'm trying to actually look now to see what there's something that this reminds me of very heavily. Oh, there it is. So the musician Voltaire did a stop motion thing called Chichian. It was on MTV. It was only on for like a season. And giant moth. Yay, giant moth.
Mothra.
Anyway, but it had that very spooky, very weird stop motion animation that this just kind of reminds me of. But anyway, what is it like? I mean, I get the feeling it's a horror theme. Am I right on that?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of violence and gore, I guess. Like, it's a lot of grotesque looking monsters. And like I said, it looks like a Tool music video. So if you remember those from the 90s, like, those are, I mean, you wouldn't call them slapstick comedies, but they're not necessarily horror. I mean, the themes that he works with, yeah, I mean, it's all monsters and things fighting and body horror shit. Like, it's if you had to lump it in something, I guess you'd say horror. But I didn't. It's not like I was scared watching it. It's not like horrifying. It deals with monsters and abstract stuff and kind of gore and violence. But
so would you so just get feedback from anyone else, thoughts on what we just saw in the trailer? I guess not.
I think it looked really cool.
It's so far outside the range of what I normally watch that I can appreciate its awesomeness, and I'm otherwise standing back going, oh yeah, no, I don't think so.
I definitely want to watch it, but I have no idea how.
I'm sure you could find it a couple different places. I know it's on Shudder. So any Joe Bob fans out there, when Joe Bob comes back next week, you can watch Mad God before it.
All right. No, that's so is it something that and this is why I kind of want to pull from movies that we watch, is there anything that you could pull out of it for your game night or your campaign or your a DM is like, oh man, I have no concept of what I want to do, and watch this and be inspired?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's a great example of short execution idea. You know what I mean? Not, like I said, the random encounter table that we are tasked to come up with in week 2. Coming up with concepts that work in small bites. Don't try to write the 90-minute movie, just write the 3-minute movie and do enough of those. So that's the comparison that I made. You may have an idea for the overall campaign, like the big story arc for what you're trying to do, but those campaign sessions are made up of many smaller encounters, and to think of ideas and creativity in bite-sized form. No,
that's awesome. Things like that really inspire me to begin with. So I just kind of wanted to know what is this something like after I watch it, I'll be like, oh man, now I got to do like a stop motion animation inspired. Well, I mean, I've been inspired by Ray Harryhausen. That's stop motion animation. So actually, anytime I run a skeleton encounter, that's all I see in my head. Like I don't see.
It bad?
Yeah, it's like I don't see these like well done CGI skeletons. I see these like stop motion animation things crawling over with their with their limited movement, and you can definitely see where the clay was pinched or the model was changed when they moved it along. So that's but no, awesome. That's great. I mean, honestly, it's another movie I can put on my list of things to see. And how old is the movie? You said a couple years.
I think it screened for the first time in 2021, and then came to Shudder June of 2022. So technically less than a year.
Okay. Do you know the runtime at all? Is it because I know most stop motion animation stuff is really
Yeah,
short.
it's like not. It's not probably between 85 and 90 minutes. It's not. It's
Oh
not terribly
wow,
long. Yeah.
that's even longer than I thought because a lot of stop motion animation stuff is very like stuff I've run into has been like, oh look, it's 52 minutes.
Yeah. No, it's a full length. But it doesn't overstay its welcome.
All right. Well, cool. That is something I will look forward to, and we can definitely talk about a movie to talk about next week. But I guess that kind of wraps it up. I mean, so takeaways for me is figure out what the heck is going on with the video feed because this is but and it's weird too because if I disappear, everyone well but and I know Terry was like, oh man, maybe you have the cheap version, but no, I don't have the cheap version of this. So this is actually so just to kind of stupidly brag about this is that I was on AppSumo because every once in a while I'll go on AppSumo and just take a look at the deals they have because every once in a while there's this like phenomenal deal that you're like you always miss and then beat yourself up to go shit I should have looked for it. But I was on AppSumo and it was like Melon app, which I was actually paying for. I have a yearly subscription to it, and it's a lifetime pro membership with all the updates and everything. And it was like maybe $250 to lay out up front. And thinking about it, I pay already for my yearly like 135, $150 a year for this by basically spending 2 years worth of money. I now have this thing for free, like forever. So, or at least until the society crumbles or whatever happens or the company goes. But it's owned by Streamlabs, which I
Oh
don't
yeah.
think they're really going anywhere. So that's a good thing. I mean, I've tried OBS, so as Pat can attest to in my previous attempts to do things like this, uh, it's sometimes been a pain in the ass when we try to use OBS and Zoom because for whatever reason someone pauses their camera and then suddenly they're not in the order they're supposed to be in. And then I as much as I like this format, it has its downside too because I can't be as creative. Like OBS Studio, I can do all kinds of crazy stuff, and this is just kind of like, all right, I have your pictures up on the screen. So, but anyway, I'm bitching here. All right, so anyway, we'll just go ahead and do some final shout outs and log off for the evening. So I know we only had a few visitors, but look forward to the ones that'll watch this after the fact, and maybe I'll try to promote it better than showing it like going, hey, we're doing this thing tonight. So that's kind of on me too. I'm really bad at that sort of thing. So anyway, as I said, I am JC, and you can find me Grindhouse Media or at Grindhouse Media on Twitter and Instagram. And I think there's one of them that has like a underscore between it because I couldn't actually get Grindhouse Media, and that is actually spelt GRINDHAUS, not the other spelling of Grindhouse, which I can't even spell tonight. So anyway, I will pass it over to Pat. Pat, any last minute callouts?
Yeah, Dr. X2112 at Twitter.
Okay. Mike, you want to wave or say something?
Hello.
All right. Terry?
Terry Mixon, science fiction author. Find me on Amazon.
All right, will do. And Catherine?
Check out Epi's Tome, EPIS_the_TOME. And check out Eldritch Osiris Games on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. We all do like our Twitch stuff on the one channel, and it's a lot of fun.
All right, definitely. All right, everyone. Well, have a good evening, and we will set up something for next week. And I'm about to actually go ahead and see why the cameras aren't working. So
Good luck with that.
yeah. All right, everyone. Have a good night. And
Have
we
a good night.
are